Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something really intense.
Intense is putting it mildly.
We're looking at a source, a really radical one,
Mm.
that basically says our whole understanding of Jesus, his power, the miracles, it's all a sophisticated lie.
Yeah, the source calls it a, quote, sanitized, corporate-approved fiction. Strong words.
Very strong. So
Yeah.
this isn't just, debating whether a miracle happened. It's something else entirely.
Completely different. This perspective demands we rethink why they happened, what was their actual purpose. The argument is, well, the Christ most people know, he's presented as just a stage magician.
A stage magician. Wow, so his divinity is just FX.
Special effects.
Measured by checklist of external proofs? Yeah, that's the claim.
Okay, so our mission today for this deep dive is to really get into that, to grapple with this shocking idea. We need to unpack this portrait the source paints of two very different Christs. First, there's the one they say is endorsed by the system.
The God of proofs and performances. Right. And then there's the second one, the true God, who they actually call Isis Christos.
Isis Christos. And the core question is why this viewpoint insists that even if the miracles were real, and they often concede they were.
He conceded they were real.
Some of them, yes, attested in sources they find purer, like Marcion's gospel, but they argue their failure is the ultimate proof.
Proof of what?
Proof of their utter uselessness for genuine salvation. It's a paradox. The miracles happening proves they don't work for the real goal.
Okay, the stakes here are huge then. This source isn't messing around.
Not at all. They frame it as offering a, quote, crowbar to the door of your prison cell. That's how they put it.
A crowbar to the prison cell.
Yeah. The idea is if you, the listener, think salvation depends on seeing a sign, getting some kind of material fix.
Like healing or food.
Exactly. Then, according to this view, you're actually choosing your own bondage. You're staying locked in.
So the message is, ignore the spectacle. Focus only on the one big thing.
The singular cosmic event, the appearance of the true God. Everything else is noise, distraction.
All right, let's dig into the foundations of this worldview. It really starts with this figure they call the Demiurge. Who exactly is this figure, for people maybe not familiar with Gnostic ideas?
Right, good question. So the Demiurge isn't Satan, not the ultimate evil principle. He's described more like the flawed architect of matter.
Flawed, not evil. That's an important distinction.
Crucial. He's presented as a sort of cosmic administrator, maybe a subordinate power, definitely ignorant in the grand scheme of things.
Okay.
He manages to engineer the physical world, our universe, and he looks at it, and because he lacks the bigger picture, he declares it creation, the be-all and end-all.
But this source says,
No,
absolutely
not. This source insists this material world is fundamentally a trap, a cage, built by a blind craftsman, essentially.
Yeah.
So the physical cosmos itself, a flawed prison system, that's foundational.
And like any system, especially a prison system, it needs some kind of currency, right? A way to operate. What's the currency in the Demiurge's realm?
Ah, that's key. His entire system runs on, quote, effects, spectacle, and proofs for the senses.
Proofs for the senses. Things you can see, touch, measure.
Exactly. Think of him as the master of the material. He needs validation. He needs performance, visible feedback. Why? Because the true God, the one outside the system, is pure spirit, unknowable through senses, needs no proof.
But the Demiurge does need proof.
He absolutely does. He needs to manipulate matter, that's what miracles are in this view, to validate his own power, and more importantly, to keep selling the big lie.
Which is
that matter is the point, that this physical reality is the ultimate reality.
So miracles are his way of keeping everyone convinced the prison is actually a palace.
Or at least the only reality worth investing in. Miracles are his, quote, native language. They're transactions entirely within his material system.
Okay, so if I follow this logic,
Okay.
all the stuff we see, measure, experience physically, it's like counterfeit money in this spiritual economy.
Precisely. It's like the warden issuing material banknotes.
Yeah.
He has to keep doing tricks with matter healing, feeding thousands, walking on water, just to prove his banknotes have value.
But they aren't acts of liberation from outside.
No, they're internal system maintenance. Power displays within the prison walls, disguised as something transcendent.
Which leads us straight to this source's really, really radical view on miracles themselves.
Yeah, this is where it gets tough for many people.
Because they operate using the Demiurge's currency, matter, they're automatically labeled empty. Utterly useless for salvation. I mean, that just wipes out so much of traditional belief.
It's a complete theological rejection. The logic is simple, if brutal. Salvation means escaping matter. Therefore, any act that validates matter, even if it seems good, like healing.
It keeps you focused on the prison. It reinforces the system.
Exactly. So the source insists, even if the miracle is undeniably real, you saw the blind man see, you must ignore it as spiritually irrelevant. It's a fundamental distraction.
And people who build their faith on these signs.
They're described in pretty harsh terms, hollow and hellbound, because their faith is tied to the material illusion, not the spiritual reality beyond it.
That is incredibly severe language.
Right.
But they do acknowledge the events happened, right? You mentioned Marcion's gospel.
Yes, they don't deny the events.
Yeah.
They point to sources like Marcion's gospel, which they see as relatively pure, and say, look, even this text, which rejects the Old Testament God, documents these miracles. Healings, exorcisms, raising the dead, they're in there.
So why keep Marcion's text if it has these miracles they dismiss?
Because for this source, Marcion is crucial. He was this 2nd century guy who said the God of the Old Testament, the creator.
To Demiurge, in their terms.
Right, was a different, lesser God than the true God Jesus revealed. Marcion threw out the Jewish scriptures, the law, the historical baggage. That's why this source likes him. But the miracles in Marcion's text, they're reinterpreted. They aren't proofs of salvation. They're seen as exhibit A for the failure of the liberator to get people to truly internalize the message.
So the miracles prove only the limits of external power.
Exactly. They show that spectacular displays don't actually change hearts or minds in a lasting spiritual way. They prove you can't use the warden's currency to buy your freedom.
If you accept the miracle as proof, you've just validated the Demiurge's system no matter who performed it.
You got it. The whole point for them is to look past the illusion of matter, not be impressed by manipulations within it.
So the question isn't, did it happen, but did it help anyone escape the spiritual prison?
That's the litmus test. And if the answer is no, its value is 0. Simple, brutal, but philosophically consistent within their framework.
Okay, let's really unpack this claim. The idea that the miracles produced, quote, complete and utter failure. How do they use the texts, even the canonical gospels their opponents accept, to argue this?
Well, they start with the crowds, and the source is blunt. It calls them freeloaders, not disciples. Harsh, but
Freeloaders.
because, the argument goes, they only flock to Jesus for the wonders, for the show, and crucially, for free food. They were acting like consumers, looking for a quick fix, a sensory experience, a meal.
Transactional, not transformational.
That's a good way to put it. They weren't there for deep spiritual change. They were there for what they could get materially or emotionally.
And the source points to specific text for this, right?
Yeah.
John 6.26.
Yes, that's held up as the smoking gun. Jesus says it himself right after feeding the 5,000. You seek me, not because you saw the signs, but because you ate the loaves and were filled.
Oof. That's pretty direct.
It's used as the ultimate case study in the failure of spectacle. The feeding of the 5,000, a massive, undeniable miracle, widely attested. What was the result, according to this source?
Are proud of.
Hungry stomachs, not repentant hearts. It drew attention, sure, but it didn't produce genuine spiritual conversion. It didn't shift the crowd's focus away from themselves and their material needs.
So the Demiurge's currency, material satisfaction, was successfully used, and the people stayed locked in their physical desires.
That's the interpretation. The miracle worked on a material level, but failed utterly on a spiritual, salvific level.
But hang on. I mean, isn't that a bit uncharitable? Feeding hungry people, isn't that just basic compassion, regardless of the bigger spiritual picture? Seems harsh to call them freeloaders.
That's a very fair challenge. The source addresses this by doubling down on the core premise. Isis Christos wasn't here to improve the cage.
Improve the cage, meaning make life in the material world better.
Exactly. From this viewpoint, healing someone's leg just gives them a better way to walk around the prison yard. Feeding them temporarily solves a problem that the Demiurge's flawed system is designed to constantly recreate: hunger, lack, suffering.
So true compassion isn't about relief within the system.
No. True compassion, in this radical view, is liberation from the system, and providing material relief, while seemingly kind, is ultimately a distraction from that goal. It keeps people invested in the cage.
Okay, that's a tough perspective. Let's shift from the crowds to the inner circle, the apostles. The source uses their failure as even stronger proof.
Right, because if anyone should have gotten it, it was them, wasn't it? They saw everything, up close.
Healings, exorcisms, walking on water, even raising the dead, like the widow's son at Nain. That must have been staggering.
You'd think so. Staggering displays of power over matter and even death itself. But what happened when the pressure was really on, when the arrest happened?
They scattered. Peter denied him. Judas betrayed him.
Every single one, according to the text, either betrayed him, denied him, or fled in fear. Complete collapse.
Now again, isn't it a bit much to use their fear of torture and death as proof the miracles failed? Isn't that just human survival instinct kicking in?
This source is absolutely uncompromising here. They argue, if those miracles, those tangible proofs of ultimate divine power, had truly ignited their spirits,
Then spiritual reality should have trumped physical fear.
yes, their spiritual conviction, born from seeing the divine override the laws of matter, should have outweighed their fear for their physical bodies. The fact that they prioritized saving their prison uniforms, as the source calls their bodies,
Prison uniforms. Wow.
over standing by the liberator, proves, in this view, that their faith was built on the shaky ground of external proof, sensory experience, not on deep, internal, unshakable spiritual knowing. They believed in the miracle, perhaps, but they didn't grasp its true meaning for liberation.
And this pattern, this failure of spectacle to produce real change, isn't new, is it? The source connects it back further.
Way back. The argument is, if miracles could truly save, if they could transform hearts, then ancient Israel should have been the holiest nation on earth.
Because they saw the biggest miracle.
The ultimate spectacles. The Red Sea parting, manna falling from the sky every day for decades, fire-consuming sacrifices on Mount Carmel, you name it. Unbelievable displays. And yet, the narrative consistently shows their hearts remain stone. They kept turning back to idols, back to worshiping the very matter they were supposedly being taught to transcend. Golden calves, etc.
So the conclusion from that history is,
What is seen does not unite anyone with the true God. Faith, true faith, must be born somewhere else.
where?
Born in the will, the source says. An internal choice, an alignment of the spirit, completely independent of whether your eyes see a miracle or not. Sensory verification is irrelevant, even detrimental.
Okay, so the Demiurge system uses miracles, but it also apparently co-ops the real ones. The source talks about weaponizing them through later forgeries.
Yes, this is a crucial part of the argument. They claim that later writers, the authors of the canonical Gospels, which this perspective considers heavily edited or even forgeries.
Strong claim.
Very. They argue these writers took the real events, the things ISIS actually did.
The healings, the raising of the dead.
Right, and they systematically repackaged them, recontextualized them, twisted their meaning. They turned these acts, which were maybe meant to demonstrate spiritual awakening or power over the Demiurge's system, into proof that Jesus was simply the prophesied Jewish Messiah.
A figure expected within the existing system.
Exactly, a figure whose whole purpose was to fulfill the law and the historical framework of the Demiurge's creation, someone embedded within Jewish history and prophecy.
So according to this source, this move basically dragged the liberator, the outsider god.
Right back into the prison of the law.
Yeah.
It neutralized the radical alien nature of Isis Christos by making him fit neatly into the Demiurge's established narrative.
A clever hijacking, essentially.
A strategic masterstroke by the system as they see it. And they point to the early church fathers, figures like Tertullian arguing against Marcion. What did they use as their main weapon?
The miracles.
The miracles. They used the healings, the power over nature, precisely to argue that Isis must be the same god as the creator god of the Old Testament. Their logic was, if he controls matter, he must be the god who created matter.
Which completely undermines Marcion's idea of two separate gods.
Totally. It forced the spiritual escape plan back into a material historical box. Genealogy, law, prophecy, all the Demiurge's tools. They use the truth of the event, the miracle happened, to sell the lie of its context. It proves he's the god of the Old Testament.
And this isn't just ancient history for the source.
Yeah.
They see this continuing today.
Oh, absolutely. They view the modern church, or at least much of it, as perpetuating the same demiurgic system, still focused on effects.
How? What are the modern versions?
By manufacturing what they call counterfeit spiritual highs, things like hypnotic music, emotional manipulation, fake deliverances, anything that generates a strong sensory or emotional experience.
A cheap substitute for the real thing.
Exactly. Selling cheap effects to keep the prisoners entertained, to make them feel like something profound is happening, so they don't notice they're still locked in the material emotional realm and haven't made the real internal spiritual shift. Keep the focus on the experience, not the exit.
All right, so if the everyday miracles, the short-term fixes, are the Demiurge's basic currency, then his ultimate power play, his long-term promise, must be tied to matter too.
That leads us to the resurrection of the body.
And the source calls this, what?
The system's most dangerous lie. That's a direct quote.
Wow. More dangerous than the miracles themselves. Why?
Because it strikes at the heart of eschatology, of the ultimate hope. This source argues the promise of a future bodily resurrection is built on a grotesque illusion.
An illusion, that.
That the very stuff the prison is made of is somehow worth saving, worth preserving internally. It fundamentally misunderstands the nature of salvation, according to this view.
Why would the true God, who is spirit, want to eternally preserve these temporary physical bodies? That's the question they're posing.
Precisely. Why endorse the eternal preservation of the prison uniform?
They use some pretty vivid imagery here, calling it a trailer for a future zombie apocalypse where your rotting corpse will crawl out of the ground. That's very graphic.
It's intentionally shocking. They're using hyperbole to force a shift in thinking about ontology, the nature of being itself.
Ontology, not just biology.
Yeah, exactly. If your ultimate hope, your definition of salvation, requires the reanimation and eternal preservation of your physical body,
then you're confessing your ultimate loyalty
to matter, to the physical reality created by the Demiurge. You're spiritually investing in the prison's architecture, hoping it lasts forever. But the true God offers escape from matter, while the Demiurge offers the eternal preservation of matter. It's two completely opposed goals.
Okay, but this raises a huge question. What about when ISIS reportedly raised people from the dead? Lazarus, Jairus' daughter, the widow's son at Nain. If it wasn't a preview of bodily resurrection, what was it?
This takes us back to that phrase ISIS used, particularly with Jairus' daughter. She's not dead, but sleeping.
Right. How does the source interpret that?
Not literally about biological sleep, obviously. They argue he's giving a profound lesson in ontology, in the true nature of existence, contrasting it with our limited biological understanding.
So what humans call death, the body stopping, isn't the real death.
No. From this higher perspective, what we call death is just another state of consciousness, a deeper form of being asleep, spiritually speaking, a deep sleep in matter where the spirit is totally hypnotized by the material illusion.
So when Isis says Talitha cum or Lazarus come forth, it's not reanimate this corpse.
It's more like spirit, wake up, snap out of the material hypnosis now. It's a command to the consciousness, demonstrating that the state of the physical body, cold, decaying, whatever, is ultimately irrelevant to the state of the spirit within.
It was a demonstration of the power to awaken the spirit here and now.
Yes. Not a promise to fix dead bodies later. It was about showing the possibility of escaping the hypnosis of matter in this life, quickening the spirit immediately.
Which leads then to their definition of the true resurrection. It's not bodily.
Not at all. The genuine resurrection, in this view, is purely an internal quickening. It's that awakening of the spirit that happens now in this life when the liberating life, the spirit of the true God, is allowed into your heart.
It's the exit from the Demiurge's hypnosis.
That's it exactly. An internal spiritual event happening now, not a future external physical spectacle involving cemeteries.
And the verdict on matter itself, the physical world, the bodies.
Absolutely final and brutal. Everything will burn. The entire world theater, the whole stage set built by the Demiurge, is temporary. It's slated for demolition. There's no point trying to preserve it or give it ultimate value.
So the true God wouldn't be interested in renovating the prison.
Why would he? Why would the liberator repair and eternally preserve the disposable costumes of a play that is already over? The bodies are just costumes for our time in the cage.
So clinging to the hope of a physical bodily resurrection
is seen as choosing the flesh over the spirit. It's confessing your love for the prison uniform. You're saying, I actually like it here. I want this material existence, this body, to last forever. Which means you've fundamentally misunderstood the call to escape.
This really forces you to reevaluate what you prioritize. If all our energy goes into maintaining the physical, preserving this life, seeking bodily continuity,
you're actively rejecting the exit, according to this perspective. You're aligning with the Demiurge's values. This whole line of argument is designed to break that attachment to the physical, to history, to the body.
To clear the ground for the one thing that does matter.
Exactly. The one true miracle, which has nothing to do with fixing or preserving matter.
Okay, this is where it gets really fascinating, I think. If all the external stuff, the miracles, the healings, even the promise of bodily resurrection is dismissed as worthless or worse, a trap, what's left?
Yes.
What is the single cosmic event that this source says actually matters?
It's the one thing they claim the system has worked hardest to bury. to cover up under layers of, quote, biography, genealogy, and religious cosmetics.
And that one thing is?
The appearance. The shocking invasion itself.
Explain that. What do they mean by invasion?
This radical theology insists that Isis Christos, the true god, the alien god, did not enter the world system through the normal channels. No manger, no baby, no growing up under the Demiurge's law and biological constraints.
So how did he arrive?
He appeared, suddenly, as a fully grown adult bursting into the world like a flash of lightning from outside the dream. That's the imagery they use.
Appearing fully formed. An adult, with no backstory in the system. That's the absolute key point here, isn't it? It sidesteps history entirely.
It's the central theological bombshell. It's the one singular miracle that has real cosmic significance because it's the complete antithesis of how the Demiurge operates.
How so?
The Demiurge is all about time, biology, cause and effect within matter, genealogy, history. If you're born from human parents, you're automatically plugged into the system, the law, the flesh, the historical narrative.
But by appearing fully formed.
Isis Christos bypasses that whole mechanism. He doesn't get entangled. He arrives as something utterly other.
So the appearance itself is the message. It's the ultimate declaration of where he comes from.
Exactly. By showing up as an adult with no human origin story, no childhood tied to this world, Isis is effectively shouting, I am not from here. I am not a product of your biology, your history, or your law.
He's asserting himself as alien. A disruption. A flash of pure spirit invading the material dream state.
And that's a direct challenge, isn't it, to the Demiurge's obsession with lineage, with genealogies, with the flesh, all those things used in the canonical Gospels to tie Jesus into the Old Testament story.
Right. Matthew and Luke start with genealogies for that very reason.
Yeah.
This view says that's part of the cover-up.
Precisely. The appearance is the signature saying, this world is not your real home, and I am proof because I am not of this world. The true God never got trapped in the prison system, not even for a moment through birth.
There's an analogy used in the source, isn't there, about Aslan?
Yeah, it's a helpful one. If Aslan, the great lion from Narnia, suddenly walked into your room, his presence is the miracle. You don't need to ask for his birth certificate or who his parents were or where he learned to roar.
His existence right there in your mundane room is self-authenticating. It shatters your reality.
Exactly. The fact that he's there is the proof. His presence instantly invalidates the ordinary rules of your world.
And the source contrasts this with the god who needs to do tricks.
Yeah. They say a god who needs to perform tricks to convince you is just a street magician, basically competing for applause. The true God doesn't need to perform. He simply appears.
And his very presence reduces the world of illusion to dust.
That's the idea. You don't need a scorecard of miracles, water into wine, healing this person, raising that temporary body. The fact that the outside entered the inside, that the alien god showed up at all, that is the only proof necessary. It's self-sufficient.
And this ties back to Marcion's gospel again.
Yes. The source argues that the original pure gospel, the one Marcion supposedly preserved, didn't start with mangers and genealogies. It began starkly, abruptly, with the sudden, shocking invasion of God into the world, often cited as starting around Capernaum.
All the biographical stuff came later.
Added later, they argue, specifically to dilute the shock, to domesticate the alien, to make the liberator fit the mold of the Demiurge's expected history-bound messiah.
So the message couldn't be clear. The only event truly worth focusing on is that moment of appearance, the arrival of the other. Everything else is either filler or, worse, deliberate misdirection by the system.
That's the core argument of this entire section. The appearance is the singular salvific event. Hashtag outro.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it really boils down to a fundamental choice, doesn't it? A choice presented to you, the listener. You have to pick between two completely different figures called Jesus.
Two versions on offer.
Version 1. The Jesus of the system. His power is measured by, a scoreboard. How many loaves did he multiply? How many lepers did he cleanse? He's a comforting hero, maybe, but also the bait and the trap.
Designed to keep you invested in this world, hoping for material improvement.
Right. Keeping you focused on the prison, even if he makes it seem nicer.
Okay. And version 2.
Isis Christos, the alien god, as the source calls him. His power wasn't in manipulating matter for crowds. It was in the sheer fact of his being. His existence here.
His only true miracle was himself showing up.
Showing up and delivering the message. The prison doors are actually unlocked. You can leave.
And this viewpoint insists that most organized religions, they worship the first one.
The powerful, successful, world-improving Christ of the Demiurge. the one who works within the system.
While the true followers, the ones this source calls Christians,
Followers of the true God, Isis Christos.
they follow the stranger, the outsider. The one whose mission wasn't to fix the cage, make it more comfortable with healings and free food.
But solely to point to the exit.
Which means, if you follow this logic, you have to stop basing your faith on needing spectacular effects. You have to stop begging for signs or material fixes.
Because the one real cosmic sign, the ultimate miracle, has already happened.
God appeared. The alien arrived. That's it.
Now, this leads to a really profound, maybe uncomfortable, ethical question that this worldview raises.
Yes, it's a tough one. If seeking miracles or material relief actually prevents true faith, because it keeps you focused on the Demiurge's system, what about good works?
You mean charity? Social justice? Helping the poor? Tangible acts of kindness? These are usually seen as, the absolute bedrock of demonstrating faith, proof of faith.
Exactly. But if this source is right, engaging in those activities, things like charity, could actually be seen as just redecorating the prison cell.
Wow. How so?
Because you're still operating within the Demiurge's system. You're affirming the value of improving the material conditions within the prison rather than focusing all your energy on the spiritual escape from the prison altogether. You're polishing the bars, essentially.
That is a staggering implication. An act we see as purely virtuous, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, could, from this perspective, be interpreted as subtly reinforcing the Demiurge's control.
Because it invests energy in the temporary cage, it distracts from the only thing that matters, the spiritual exit. It tackles symptoms within the flawed system rather than addressing the root problem, which is the system itself.
The challenge here is just huge. If you truly reject the Demiurge's system, does that mean you have to reject his currency material aid and his works, even when they seem good?
It seems to imply that, yes, a complete severance of attachment to the material world and its values, its problems, its solutions.
So what does this all mean for faith? If this source material has it right, and faith cannot be proven or even properly expressed through visible material acts of goodness or charity, then how do you demonstrate faith?
That's the question, isn't it?
How do you reformulate it? If it's not about works, what's left? What is the unseen act of a true Christian, the act that proves commitment to the exit, not love for the comforts or even the just causes within the cage?
That's the final, really provocative thought this deep dive leaves us with. What does faith look like if it's built only on that internal act of will, that recognition of the true God's silent, history-shattering appearance, and nothing else? What does that faith do in the world, if anything?
Something to really mull over. Thank you for exploring this with me.
Thank you. It's certainly a challenging perspective.